To mix things up a little from how you usually do things, I will now list things in the priority of interest to the viewer at least. So, the first priority is obviously damage. How much damage does this build do? Assuming that you have 10 stacks of Fighting Doctrine and are fighting with Cryo on armor, and that the enemy is within a large radius of you, so that the Guardian Angel gives you its max bonus damage, you can hit for up to 2.5 billion damage per Nova. Even more if you have more than 10 stacks of Fighting Doctrine. On the second priority, we have the playstyle, which is also pretty straightforward. For single hits, if you want to do that, you just slide into an enemy and explode. But for anything that is a bit more tanky than the average enemy, and when you want to be at a larger distance from them to get you more Guardian Angel range, you just slam down and let the spark plug handler things run away from the enemy a bit, so that you're still in range of hitting them with the Nova, and then everything will die probably. And after we have gotten those things out of the way, let's talk about why this works. So, we have 3 key items in this build that make this work. First off, and most importantly, is the Frozen Snowshoe, which is a shield that is from the Malawan takedown and drops in Valkyries. It combines the abilities of the red card, a shield which, when you slide into an enemy, the shield does a Nova, and the Nova damage is based on the sheer capacity. And the other shield that it uses is the Frozen Heart, which when it does a Nova, it instantly freezes all enemies, and it spawns a healing particle that heals you for 30% of the damage dealt. Secondly, we have the Bloodletter. This is also a very important item, because this allows us to instantly refill our shields. Because since the damage of the Nova is based on how much shield capacity you have, it's important for you to have your shields full or as full as possible at all times. So it might seem risky to break your shields while using Deathless, but trust me when I say that it's more than worth it. Because all of this capacity means even more damage for this thing. Yeah. Then third off, we have the Spark Plug artifact. Deathless is somewhat optional, because it's like not really necessary, it's just good for optimizing. The issue with the Spark Plug is that it uses a damage source that was copied from the Electric Slide artifact, which whenever you slide just does like electric tethers to like nearby enemies, which by itself kind of uninteresting, that fact, but because it copies the damage source from there, that means it also counters slide damage. Therefore, every single tick of this thing hitting an enemy will count as an individual slide, which will then explode your Frozen Snowshoe. For instance, on Kevin, as you can see, I just slammed once, and I am exploding multiple times, simply because of the fact that the Spark Plug is still doing its thing. Yeah. On the topic of gear, let's go over the specifics of it. So, first off, the Frozen Snowshoe ideally is rolled with a capacity roll, which increases the capacity without draining health. This is important because of the skill tree, which I will explain later on. Then we have the Fish Slap. For whenever an enemy is immune to cryo, it is either recommended to switch to a weapon with URAD, which I will also provide, or to just use Groundbreaker from damage from other enemies on them, which is the easier option to do. So whenever, like for instance in the Marathon Takedown, a Cryo Heavy is just immune against around 96% of the damage dealt, 94% I think it was, then it's either wanted that you would Groundbreaker them or just switch to Radiation bonus element instead of Cryo. The Bloodletter has Splash Damage Radius, Splash Damage and Extra Skill Damage. The Splash Damage and Splash Radius are both necessary definitely to boost the Nova damage even more. And the Action Skill Damage is just to buff things like Final Gag then. And because like there's nothing really else that would really help you with shield damage, because all the shields scalar increases, like I think it was around 12,000 shields. Those all come after after the increases from like Deathless and all that, so it's not really that impactful, sadly. Then the Sparkplug Deathless. Sparkplug, as I said, absolutely necessary. Deathless, not necessary, but helps a lot. It has 2 rolls of cryo damage, because cryo damage, fire damage, and rad damage are the 3 elements that can double roll on artifacts. And it has 55% AoE damage, which, if it is not a primary passive, which it can't be because we already have double rolled cryo, as a secondary passive it gives you also 55% AoE radius, unlike the regular primary artifact splash damage passive. I don't know why they decided to do that, but they did. So yeah, if it is not in the first slot, it gives you also like bonus radius, which is very important. Or not important, but very nice to have at least. Then Fish Slap, we already talked about that. The gear. Guardian Angel, twice. Once with Cryo and once with URAT. Those can give you up to 500% V2 damage or times 6 damage, depending on like how you do the math. It's the same in the end, but you get what I mean. Based on how far away the enemy is. This is usually wouldn't be that great with like a normal red card, but since we are able to to put down a spark plug and then walk away and still have Novas going off, we can actually distance ourselves from the enemy to like an extent where we can actually even abuse the full 500% from that. Very nice. Then we have one in Urad, like I said, for the cryo-immune enemies when Groundbreaker is just either not an option or not that or just not built up right now. Kick Charger and Plasma Coil both have URAD on them. It's for second wins. Like sometimes you do go down because you are constantly breaking your shields while at 1 HP. So it's just nice to have something to get back up. So next, let's talk about the anointments. We have Terra Cryo on one of the Guardian Angels and URAD on the other. And we have URAD on both of our 5 life weapons. Then we have 75% increased shields and health after exiting Iron Bear for 25 seconds. Very good uptime and a lot more powerful than any ASE would be, even if it was cryo to match elements with this. Then we have lastly the melee attacks have a 25% chance to apply terror to yourself, Anointed Fish Slap, which you can get by just switching events over to the Halloween event after getting a Fish Slap, and then using Crazy Odds Machine to reroll your anointment into it. Yeah. The important part here is that the Spark Plug, since it actually counts as slight damage, which is a subcategory of melee damage, is able to apply the terror to us, as you can see right there. Not just the slam itself, but also each tick of the Spark Plug that goes off to the enemies. So you will just be constantly under terror, like almost without any cooldown. Then I said earlier that Terra Cryo is more powerful than the Urat, even though the percentage is lower. This is because of the 55% cryo damage from here, which just amps this up a lot more than this would ever be. Lastly, let's go over the skill tree. First off, let's go over Iron Cup and the purple skill tree. Big surplus is just nice to have because Iron Cup is going to be constantly on cooldown. It's going to be one of those builds where Iron Cup is just designed to kill itself and nothing else. Biofuel, just for some health regen, helps keep your shield up with Blood Ladder. Not that important, but nice to have. Really big guns, nice for Iron Cup to kill itself. Explosive Fury, also very nice for getting more stacks of this, and also more stacks of this. Fire it up. Just fire rate, like in case you need it and fight for your life. Can be nice. Double time, sometimes, like between areas, you can just use Iron Cup for a little speed up. And Superior Firepower. Superior Firepower is supposed to boost Status Effect damage, however, since Cryo doesn't have a Status Effect, and Gearbox still added Cryo to it, they just made it buff normal Cryo damage by 100% at 5 stacks. Which is why, that's another reason why doubling down on Cryo with the Terra Cryo instead of using Urat is a lot more powerful. Blue tree, not much to talk about. We don't really have to waste a lot of skill points here. Just get Skagged in, a bit of radius from here, and then put 2 points into Steel and Steel Bear, because we can't really sacrifice many more points. That's because we need to spend all of our points, or not all of them, but like we need to get all the way down the red tree. This one is just stun damage reduction. Thin red line, very powerful, because all the health that it steals from you, quote unquote, is added onto your base shields, which means that shield multipliers like Deathless or Light of Ingenuity, with its 30%, actually multiply the gains that you get from Thin Red Line. Very powerful. Then Drowning Embrace, not that necessary, just getting down the skill tree again. Full Kind of Whip-Ass, whenever you summon Iron Bear, your shield recharges. Can be nice sometimes. Experiment Munitions, also just nice to have, not that powerful. At least not in this build. Deathship Measures, same thing there. It does sadly not boost actual skill damage like Experimental Munitions or Skagged in or Big Surplus. So yeah, just nice to have. Because you will at least have 50% gun damage. Phalanx Doctrine, very powerful, multiplies the gains you get from Thin Red Line, as stated earlier with Light of Ingenuity. Also gives you some gun damage. Then Tenacious Defense, normally not that good of a skill, but it restores 40% of max shields whenever your shield breaks, if the shield was pulled before then. Which means that whenever we slide or activate Spark Plug into an enemy, we just get instantly some shields back, which is very nice, as you can see right there. Then we have Green Tree. 5 out of 5 Cloud of Leads, just nice to have some free shots every now and then. Darker Bear, Iron Cup kills itself faster, more damage. Stoke the Embers, you're already here, why not go for it? Redistribution, nice to have health regen for your shield. And finally, Russian Offensive. Also very, very important. Because the damage that the Nova actually deals will be multiplied by 34 from Mayhem scaling. So the 8% quote-unquote lifesteal from here are a lot more powerful in practice than they would seem. Then we also have Iron Cup, so Action Skill, obviously. And we are using the Baby Nukes augment, because this would just make it harder to kill, which you don't want. And these two skills are designed to be good whenever Iron Cup is up, which we just don't have that most of the time. So this is pretty much the only real augment that actually does anything for us. Then we give it the Shape Charge Grenade Launchers, because they are very good at killing Iron Cup. Just because they have like an arc that goes downwards, so whenever Iron Cup fires at enemies, it tends to just shoot at a direct line instead of trying to lob the shots at the enemy, which causes the shots to just drop in front of them and just kill them. Before we can get into the gameplay, we have to talk about the Mayhem Modifiers. First off, we have Speed Demon. This just helps with moving around either between fights or in a fight, because then we can move faster away from an enemy that is about to run into our Spark Plug, therefore giving us more damage with the Guardian Angel. Keeley Avenger and Drone Ranger are pretty much non-modifiers, just because yeah, all the drones and all the hearts that are going to be spawned are going to be instantly destroyed by our Nova radius. And not the phase is also not, pretty much a non-modifier, because, well, the Novas just can't crit anyway, so that's just not a downgrade. You just have to be aware of that and fight for your life. Like, that hitting crits might be not as good as just hitting body shots there. So yeah, after saying that, let's just get right into it. And talk about some of the gameplay. As described earlier, it's pretty straightforward. All you do is slam and watch everything die. So you slam and explode. Slam, explode, and you just repeat that ad nauseum. As you can see, you can't see a lot, which means you often have to rely on the minimap to navigate. Because the minimap actually like tells you exactly the geometry of the map as well as where the enemies are positioned, which is very nice if you just can't see them. Now let's just pretend. Okay, I guess not. Okay, let's pretend that this guy. Let's pretend that we go down. Assuming that we don't have a spark plug, because we can actually still get our shields refilled and have a Nova go off. We can just switch to this weapon and just get a second win from that. Pretty easy. And if for some reason this guy, for instance, is cryo immune, we can just use Uride weapon, which is the second slot in this build, and just use Uride instead of cryo. Not as powerful as cryo, as stated earlier, but it will still do the job very well. Then this guy will counter him with Novas because of the ramp, so we just use a fish tap. That doesn't work right away, just for another one, and maybe another one. And there we go. Then we have Iron Cub. Wait for the elevator to go down. This is where like Iron Cub can be useful. Just like between areas, you just use them for movement speed a bit. In this fight, the shared health bar of the Valkyries will go bonkers, because they have like an actual thing up there that you can hit. It's right about there, as you can see. If you hit that, the big health bar takes damage, which then messes up the synchronization between them. So like sometimes it just jumps around up and down. And yep, that wasn't even any Nova, that was just Groundbreaker. Same thing here. No, that was a Nova. There's the staircase. Doggies. Yeah, there you see. Hit that thing, but now I'm gonna hit that. It's gonna back up. Now I've got these guys. Okay, I'll leave the Cryo one alive on purpose by switching to Cryo weapon. Like, even with Cryo, we still have Fire and Skag Gun, which does a lot of damage, which just kill him right there. But sometimes it's just not enough. And that's where, yeah, that's important. With the Uride thing. Or just using Groundbreaker, either or. Maybe even both. Yeah, radius is a bit big on this thing. I won't keep going because I'm pretty sure that that was a pretty decent show of how this build works and is played. You can still use the gun if you want to, but why would you? When your Nova does all the work for you anyways. Cool. In that case, see you next time.